Hi, I'm Dr. Chris Moore.
And I'm Dr. Kara Gallagher from More Results.
You know, at More Results, we work with all types of clients, from weight loss to athletes, and everyone has the same question. How do I start my grocery shopping? And that's important because grocery shopping is where all nutrition decisions are made. No matter who you are, everything starts in the grocery store. So today, we're going to guide you and teach you how to have the best shopping experience, from the produce section, bread, seafood, and everything in between, so you know how to make the best nutrition decisions.
Unfortunately, marketing cues and the overwhelming variety can make it very difficult to make consistent, healthy decisions on a regular basis. So let's get started. In fact, we're not even in the store yet, and we're already tempted by high-calorie, high-fat cookies and high-sugar drinks. So rule number one is to never shop hungry. Otherwise, you'll have these items in your cart before you even hit the inside of the store. There are over 50,000 different types of products available at the grocery store, and it's not just packaged items. As you can see here, this store is selling today 670 different types of produce varieties, and we think that's great when it comes to produce. Unfortunately, many of the packaged items that we find on the store shelves should actually stay there.
What's great about grocery stores is they're all essentially set up the same way. All grocery shopping can be done around the perimeter of the store, about 90% of shopping. And here we have the first perimeter is produce, fruits and vegetables. As we mentioned, there are over 670 varieties of produce available at this store alone. So instead of just focusing on things like green apples, which are fantastic for you, maybe try other options: mangoes, pineapples, oranges. There are so many different nutrients in all these foods. You want to make sure you're getting all of them. Vitamins, things like vitamins A, C, and loads of antioxidants. Remember, the darker the color of the fruit or vegetable, the better it is for you. So make sure you're eating a whole variety of produce at all times.
Many people are overwhelmed by all the variety that's available in the produce section. And so one way to make this a little simpler and an easier way of kind of navigating your way through here is to think about buying a rainbow of colors. And here's a perfect example of the rainbow of colors you can get with even one type of produce. For example, peppers, we have green peppers, we have red peppers, yellow and orange. And so when you're thinking about your diet during the course of the day, think, I'm going to eat a rainbow of colors every single day throughout the course of the day.
And each unique variety, as I mentioned, has all different antioxidants and vitamins and minerals. So that's why you have to make sure you have a variety of colors, again, a rainbow of colors every single meal. We can't stress the variety of produce enough. All different fruits and vegetables have unique ingredients and unique benefits. Here we have a family of vegetables called the cruciferous vegetables: cauliflower, broccoli, cabbage, and also Brussels sprouts. They have unique properties that can help fight disease, such as cancer, so make sure you include these on a regular basis. And do things like add different herbs and spices by getting recipes from magazines and the internet to make sure you enjoy the vegetable. Don't be afraid to try different things. Remember, variety is the king, and we challenge you to try at least one new variety every single day.
One question we often get is about prepackaged products. Are they as good as fresh produce? And the answer is yes. In terms of nutrient value, they're identical. However, what you're paying for is the convenience. So somebody's already washed and packaged that product for you. It's pre-cut, oftentimes, such as these carrot sticks and celery sticks. And so you're really kind of paying for a sous chef in your own home. But if that convenience means that you'll eat the product, then we're all for it. Here we have the salad bar, which you can find at almost any grocery store these days.
Salad bar is a great option. You know, if you didn't pre-plan your meals and you're at work with some coworkers, you want to get some lunch, you know, it's better not to stop at the fast food restaurants or other restaurants which could offer real high-fat meals. Something like a salad bar, which is offered at most grocery stores, is a great option. Look at the variety we have here. We have the dark green vegetables we talked about, the spinach or spring mix, and it's a great way to get a variety of vegetables that you may not otherwise try on your own at home.
However, don't assume everything that you find on a salad bar is actually healthy. One of the things that you want to stay clear of are the types of salads, such as the pasta salad, the tuna salad, the chicken salad, etc. Many of those have hidden fat. They have added mayonnaise, sometimes even added sugar, and many times added salt. So you want to stay clear of those completely. Stick with the vegetables, the lean sources of protein, and then remember always that what you add to your salad, such as the high-fat salad dressings, the bacon bits, the croutons, they can make or break it. So if you want to make your salad, stick with the lean sources of protein and the fruits and vegetables.
It's important to understand how to read food labels. Every food package has a food label, so make sure you learn how to do this. And we're going to go over some guidelines now. First of all, on any food, you want to first look at the serving size of the food. As you can see here for this product, it's 1 1/4 cups. So the information listed below is for each serving for 1 1/4 cups. First, you want to look at the calories after the serving size. So you see the calorie level. This one product says 200 calories, and that is for 1 1/4 cups, as I mentioned earlier. Underneath that, we have the total fat listed. Total fat's an important number to take into consideration. Within that total fat, there are different types of fat: saturated, trans fat, polyunsaturated, and monounsaturated fats. Trans fats is one you want to really key in on. In 2006, it was made mandatory that all foods had to list trans fats on their label. Ideally, like this product, it should say 0. Underneath that, there are a number of different categories as well. I want you to focus in on the total carbohydrates. The total carbohydrate number is important, but even more important is what makes up those carbohydrates: dietary fiber and sugar. This is a great product here with 8 grams of fiber and less than 1 gram of sugar. Ideally, as a general rule of thumb, you should look for products that have at least 3 grams of fiber per serving, like this one, and ideally less than 10 grams of sugar maximum. Now, there are a few exceptions to that rule, such as dairy products, because they do have a little bit more sugar, but other than that, less than 10 grams of sugar should be a rule of thumb. Finally, moving down to the very bottom, we have the ingredients in the product. When looking at the ingredient list, it's very important to remember a few rules. The first ingredient after this ingredients is the most abundant one in the product, and subsequent words after that are less and less, meaning the first ingredient is the most, all the way down to the final ingredient has the least amount in the product. As a general rule of thumb, make sure that if it's a carbohydrate-based product, whole grain wheat or whole grains is the first ingredient, and things like sugar are lower down on the list. As I mentioned, if it has hydrogenated oils or partially hydrogenated oils, put it back on the shelf. You don't need it. And also you want to key in on, if typically in the first 5 ingredients, if it's any type of sugar, such as sugar itself, high fructose corn syrup, or another name for sugar, again, limit its intake or put the product back. Now that we're done with the produce section, let's move on to the organic section. The term organic is continually popping up more and more in grocery stores across the country. This store here has an entire section just for organic foods. A couple key points. One is that just because something is organic does not necessarily mean it is healthy.
But wouldn't an organic cookie be better than say, a regular cookie?
That's a good point, Kara. And you have to be careful though, because something like an organic cookie here, if you look at these ingredients, we have, the first one is unbleached flour, so not even whole grain. Second ingredient is organic sugar. Then we have raw sugar as the third ingredient, palm oil, and then expeller pressed oleic safflower oil. So out of the first 5 ingredients, we have 2 of them are sugar, 2 of them are oil. So not necessarily. Now with that said, there are clearly some better options in this section. While the data is not perfectly clear that organic foods are head and shoulders above conventional foods in terms of nutrient quality, there are some better options potentially, and it might be more of an environmental issue as well. One concern we have with produce intake, and a lot of people opt for produce, organic produce versus non-organic produce. Americans on average eat about 2 to 3 servings of produce a day. Our first concern is to have them eat more fruits and vegetables and get up to the recommended servings. Then, once they do that, if they want to choose organic, that's fine. And again, that's more of a personal choice. The taste, the environmental issues, and if they feel that they're doing something better for their body, great. First and foremost though, make sure you're getting more produce in your diet rather than just concerning if it's organic or not. And then some other options, again, the cookies, the cakes, those are not much different than just conventional items. Organic sweet foods are still sweet foods. As we're sticking to the perimeter of the store, as we mentioned earlier, we moved on to the bread section. Carbohydrates often get demonized in the literature. And what's important is that carbohydrates are not bad per se, it's the quality of the carbohydrate. So a licorice is a carbohydrate, and so is a bread. The key is to focus on a whole grain, high fiber carbohydrate.
But it's hard to find out what that actually is. I mean, look at how many options a person has here. This is insane. And so you literally could spend hours in this section alone trying to figure out what is the best type of whole grain bread to purchase.
It makes it difficult. And for example, when you're reading a label with bread in particular, here when I look at this, I see 100% whole grain on the label, and it tells me that there are 4 grams of fiber per slice. That's a great rule of thumb. When we talk about with clients making smarter choices, we say aim for at least 3 grams or more of fiber per slice. And what's important is looking at the actual serving size.
You know, that's a great tip, because when I look at this right here in this label, we see that it has 3 grams of dietary fiber, which sounds like it meets your rule, but when I look at this, it says per 2 slices. Also of interest on this label is the fact that it includes caramel color. So why would they add caramel color to a bread?
You know, it's great, it's a great point. And caramel color actually makes it look, it gives it a darker color. A lot of people associate a darker color with high fiber. That's not necessarily the case. So be very wary, read labels, and again, look for 100% whole wheat or 100% stone ground whole wheat or whole grain as the first ingredient on the bread.
So we can't assume dark color means darker nutrient value in breads.
Not necessarily.
We can be fooled here.
Exactly. So again, 3 grams of fiber per slice of bread when you're making a smart, hearty, high fiber selection. We've moved on to one of our favorite sections of the grocery store, the seafood section. Seafood is one of those foods that a lot of people don't eat enough of, but should definitely eat more. The American Heart Association actually recommends eating 12 ounces of seafood per week.
Is that 2 to 3 servings per week?
It's about 2 to 3 servings if you're looking at about a 3 or 4 ounce serving of fish. So just like the produce section we talked about, you want to make sure you're eating a variety. And look at the variety available here. We have wild salmon, we have cod, catfish, scallops. All of these are beneficial. And you want to make sure you're getting them on a regular basis. One of the primary benefits of fish are something called omega-3 fats, which can help reduce the risk of diseases like heart disease, rheumatoid arthritis, Alzheimer's disease, stroke, and a number of others.
So fish that are rich in omega-3 fats include things that are cold water fish, such as salmon or tuna. Particularly canned light tuna is what you'd want to focus on because it's lower in mercury. Other examples would be sardines, oysters, anchovies, striped bass. So there's a number of different types of fish that you can get that are high and rich in omega-3 fats in those fish products.
And the benefit with fish doesn't just end at the omega-3 fats. Also a great source of protein, zinc, iron, and a number of other nutrients. Now, one concern a lot of people have is the mercury. And some fish are higher in mercury than others. So as you can see on the slide we have on the screen, you can see some of the fish that are better sources of omega-3 fats that are also lower in mercury. So those are the types of fish you want to concentrate on when you're trying to include them in your diet.
And here we have another great source of protein and other nutrients, the meat section.
And meat includes anything from red meat like beef, chicken, turkey, sausage. So let's talk about some of them in detail.
You know, I know many people believe that ground turkey is much better than ground beef, but that's really not the case, is it?
No, absolutely not. You have to be very careful. And what we talked about earlier about reading food labels, that goes the same for meats as well.
You know, when I first learned that oftentimes you have to look for ground turkey breast rather than just lean ground turkey, I was really shocked. The fat difference between these two is substantially different.
Exactly. And what happens is with the ground, when it just says lean ground turkey, that's actually the dark meat, the white meat, and the skin ground in together, as opposed to the turkey breast, which is the leanest cut, just ground up. So when you're shopping for turkey or ground turkey or chicken, make sure you look for the turkey or chicken breast.
Yeah, the actual ground turkey itself has nearly 7 grams more fat per serving than the lean ground turkey breast. So definitely keep your eye out for ground turkey breast only.
And let's look at the ground beef as well. And you have all different varieties. It tells the percent fat on the label. So I just picked up 2 here. And this one is 80% lean and 20% fat versus this one, which is 4% fat. And the difference in fat content, there's 23 grams of fat in the one that has 20% fat versus only 4 grams in the one that's 4% fat. So that would be a much better option when you're going to make meatloaf or hamburgers or something along those lines. Look for the leanest cuts, and it will tell you the leaner cuts on the label.
And here's a tip for when you take that meat at home. If you're mixing it in with something that has some type of flavoring, for example, if you're making seasoned tacos or something like that, you can also, after you cook the meat, drain it in hot water to rinse off some additional fat from that meat product. When you're adding the seasoning, you won't lose some of the flavor because you're adding that in with the seasoning packet.
And now, while meats like we talked about have great nutrients like protein and zinc and others, there's also meats that are maybe not as the best choices. Things like sausage, bratwurst, much higher in fat. So those are the foods that you should limit your intake of. The ones we mentioned, great source on a regular basis or weekly, but limit the ones that are real high in fat. As I'm walking down this aisle, you notice the nutrition facts label above the meat section, which is fantastic, trying to do something to educate consumers. Now you can see up here, chicken breast is the highest on the list because that's the lowest in fat out of the other sources included. And chicken breast is a great, boneless, skinless chicken breast is a great option. You can grill it, bake it, broil it to have a low-fat, heart-healthy protein source in your diet. Add it to salads and make stir fry. Lots of other nutrients come from chicken breast. Another great option is something like pork chops. Pork is very low in fat as well. Again, can be cooked the same way as chicken. Just make sure you look for some unique recipes. Magazines and the internet can give you that, and make it different ways to enjoy it with your whole family. Again, it's a heart-healthy food that can be enjoyed on a regular basis. We've talked about seafood, we've talked about chicken, meat, pork, and other great sources of protein. But here, eggs, actually one of the best sources of protein in the entire grocery store. It's a complete source of protein, meaning it has all the essential amino acids, and it's also very inexpensive. Eggs are fantastic for you, both the egg yolks and the egg whites. The egg yolks have a lot of nutrients that we haven't discussed, vitamin E, choline, and other nutrients that are great for you. So definitely include some eggs on a regular basis. Nice thing about this is it's a great way to add some additional vegetables to your diet. Make an omelet in the morning with some handfuls of spinach and other vegetables that we discussed earlier. Egg yolks got a bad rap not too long ago because they are slightly higher in fat, but the fact of the matter is American Heart Association actually came out and said that eggs are okay to eat on a regular basis. So if you have high cholesterol levels, talk to your doctor, but in general, eggs are a fantastic food for you. Another option here, more for convenience than anything, are something like this, prepackaged eggs in a container. So all these essentially are they take the fat out of the eggs. These are egg whites, and you could use those for convenience. Again, great source of protein. You're not getting all the nutrients that you would with the whole egg, but for convenience, this definitely wins.
Similar to the cookies at the front of the grocery store, here we have another marketing hotspot that you really need to be aware of when you're grocery shopping. So these end-of-aisle displays are really designed to be tempting, to be easy to grab items that are easy to snack on, that are oftentimes are high calorie and high fat items. And the other thing to keep in mind is notice the colors of this packaging. So anytime you see the colors red or yellow, those are appetite stimulating colors. And when you see those colors, they're oftentimes designed to increase your appetite, to make you feel hungrier, and they're oftentimes associated with snack items such as these. So just be very careful. Avoid these end-of-aisle displays as much as you can, and you'll save money and calories. Many of our clients are confused about which is better, margarine or butter.
And for a good reason. There's hundreds of options here, and healthcare practitioners themselves are often confused. One day butter is said to be better for you than margarine, the next day margarine is better for you. So what kind of decisions can you make? You can see here we have spray butter, we have spray margarine, we have margarine that's supposed to lower your cholesterol, and a lot of other options.
One thing I really like about some of these products, such as the spray butter, is that for those who are interested in restricting calories and managing their body weight, this offers a nice option in terms of a lot of better flavor without many calories. So for 5 sprays, a person can get 0 calories, and it allows them to have the sense of really having the taste of butter at breakfast, and keeps them from feeling restricted or deprived when they're trying to watch those calories.
And here's another option. this butter, or margarine in particular, and there's a few different options now, is actually proven to reduce cholesterol. So it has some added ingredients in there that actually can lower your cholesterol. So, what I usually tell folks who are interested in managing their cholesterol or reducing their cholesterol is if that's the case and if they use this, if they use butter regularly, then this might be something good to switch to try it out.
Now they would need to have 2 tablespoons of that per day to have that cholesterol lowering benefit. So that's also another consideration. If somebody doesn't normally eat that much butter, even making that switch, they would really need to have that amount to see that benefit.
Right. And now one last thing we want to definitely point out with the margarines in particular is something called hydrogenated oils or trans fats. And we haven't mentioned this yet. Trans fats are a type of fat that are very dangerous for the body, very unhealthy for the body. And trans fats are very often added to margarines to make them more solid. So if you are buying a margarine, make sure it has 0 trans fat and no hydrogenated oils on the food label. And also just keep in mind, as a general rule of thumb, the more solid it is, the more trans fat it will have. On the other hand, butter is just typically cream. So if you're looking for just a more pure product, butter might be a better option. Again, always use it in moderation because both butter and margarine do have a significant amount of calories, unless you're going for the spray butter, as Karen mentioned earlier. If you notice, we've almost covered all of the food groups, and we've really just stuck to the perimeter of the grocery store. We haven't even made it down any of the aisles.
However, that doesn't necessarily mean that we're safe. Even though we've spent all of our time in the perimeter of the grocery store, we still are bombarded with messages for high-fat, high-calorie items that are easy to pick up and easy to grab. Notice we're located right here. We see a whole display of oatmeal cream pies and fudge rounds. Easy to pick one of these up and throw it into the cart. If we don't turn here, we look over to the end display, we see a display for ice cream and so on. And then finally, right over here, we notice a display for s'mores and similar items. So oftentimes, one of the things that grocery stores will do will package similar items together to encourage you to buy more than one product. Instead of just having the graham crackers, they'll have the graham crackers with the marshmallows, with the chocolate, so that you buy more than one item. So one way to get around that is to always make sure that you make a grocery list and that you stick to it. So before you leave your house, identify and plan all of your meals for the week. Look through your pantry and your cupboards and determine what foods you need, what you already have on stock, and then most importantly, stick to your list.
Looks like milk is the next thing on here in the final section of the perimeter of the store.
Let's go.
We're on to the final section of the perimeter of the grocery store, the dairy section. And as you can see here, there's a whole different variety of milks. Whole milk, 2%, 1%, all the way down to fat-free milk. The main difference between the types of milk is actually just the fat content and the calorie content. They all offer a lot of nutrients, vitamins, minerals such as calcium, vitamin D, vitamin A, and protein. Again, the main difference is the fat and the calorie content. So ideally, what we always suggest is looking for the lower fat options, the 1% or the fat-free milk.
One thing that people oftentimes will say is that they don't want to change from a whole or 2% milk to these lower calorie options because they don't like the consistency that that product offers. So a number of different manufacturers out there now offer a product. This one is called Fat-Free Plus, but you might see something known as Super Skim or Skim Plus. And what they do is they take a thickener to the milk and they keep so they add the thickener to the skim milk, keeping the calories and the fat content identical to skim milk, but doesn't have that same watery consistency that skim milk offers. And so by doing that, it makes it seem as though you're drinking 2% milk, but it's actually a skim milk product.
That's great for weight loss clients.
It is.
And here's another option that's getting more popular, soy milk. And soy is just becoming more popular over the last few years. It's an alternative to the actual dairy beverage, particularly if you're allergic to dairy. It does offer the same nutrients because it is fortified with the same nutrients milk is. Has a slightly different flavor, but a lot of people like that unique flavor. And there actually has been some data to show that it may actually benefit those with potentially heart disease. So this is just another option to give it a try next time you're at the grocery store.
Now we're in one of our first aisles that we ventured down outside of the perimeter of the grocery store. And the frozen aisle is a great option for many reasons. One of the reasons is that we also want to keep things on hand so that we have a well-stocked pantry and refrigerator and freezer at home. So here we have a number of different choices in terms of frozen meals. And so there's a couple of things that if you're going to use this as a go-to meal to keep in the freezer for nights where you don't want to necessarily prepare something at home or you don't have time, then one of the things that you want to keep in mind when you're looking at these products are a number of things on the nutrition label. For example, how many servings is each package? Is it one or is it more than one? How many calories does the product have? And then particularly paying attention to fat and sodium. Here, a product I just grabbed out of the frozen aisle has 1,050 milligrams of sodium in this meal alone. So it's an easy, quick way for people to accumulate too much sodium without even realizing it. So definitely when you're making your choices about what you want to keep on stock at home, you want to consider those sort of things. So we're going to put this one back.
And one thing I noticed with a lot of these meals, Kara, is that sometimes, as a man, they sometimes don't necessarily fill me up with the portions they have. What do you think about this Hungry Man option?
Now, one of these things that, of course this would appeal to a lot of people. It's really kind of marketed mainly toward men. It's the sports grill serving. But if you notice this, it has nearly 1,000 calories per this one meal, has 38 grams of fat, and has 1,870 milligrams of sodium. So way too much. So a couple of recommendations. One thing that manufacturers are now doing is that they're offering hearty portions in lean cuisine options or in Weight Watchers options. So they're paying attention to calories and fat, but they're offering a little more food. So here we have a lean cuisine meal with 30% more food, and it has 330 calories and 4.5 grams of fat and about 1/3 the amount of sodium in that product. So this would be a better option. Even better would be to have one of these meals at home and then either start the meal with a piece of fruit or have a side salad along with it. Add volume while adding nutrient value rather than relying on these processed packaged goods.
So you mean have one of these larger 30% more food and the salad?
You could do that, or you could have a smaller option as well. So it depends on how hungry you are and how many calories that you need as an individual. But one of the things to keep in mind is how can you add volume and nutrition at the same time without packing on a lot of calories.
I think that's the best thing we talked about earlier with produce. One of the best ways to get more produce. On average, Americans are eating 2 to 3 servings a day, as we mentioned earlier, and the recommendation is 5 to 13 servings a day, so much higher than that. So starting off with a side salad or a piece of fruit would be a great option. Over here on the other side of the frozen foods aisle, we have frozen vegetables. And very often we both get the question is if frozen foods are just as good as fresh. And the answer is yes, because the frozen foods are frozen at the peak of ripeness, so the nutrient quality remains the same. So frozen, they're a great way to get more vegetables in your diet, much more convenient than the fresh variety. So throw them into omelets, throw them into stir fry, things like that are a great way to add more vegetables to your diet on a daily basis.
One thing to be careful of, just like with the salad bar though, is that along the same lines, we have frozen vegetables over here that are contained in sauces. So they're single serve pouches that have a sauce associated with them. When you add that additional sauce, now we're adding additional calories, additional fat, and many milligrams of sodium. So in this product alone, it has 470 milligrams of sodium per 3/4 cup. So we want to be very careful of these types of products, sticking with just the frozen vegetables by themselves, keep them on hand, and as Chris mentioned, throw them in pasta dishes and so on. By now you've probably realized that we think fruits and vegetables are pretty important. So whether you purchase that fresh, frozen, or in the can, the nutritional value remains the same. Here we have canned fruit, and one of the things you want to remember when you're looking at canned fruit is that sometimes it can be tricky. You can't just grab a can and go because the way it's packaged is very different. We have here fruit cocktail in heavy syrup, in light syrup, and actually in fruit juice or in its own juice. And that's what you always want to key in on. When you purchase canned fruit, always make sure that you're going for fruit in its own juice to avoid having any extra sugar. We also, over on the same aisle, have the canned vegetables, and that also remains the same. The key to remember here with canned vegetables is that sodium is added as a preservative, and so you really want to be careful and look for the amount of sodium in each product. Nowadays, most products and most varieties of vegetables also have light sodium or low sodium alternatives available. So that might be an important consideration if you're watching your sodium intake.
We mentioned doing 90% of your shopping around the perimeter of the grocery store. This is one of the aisles, the cereal aisle, that a lot of time people do spend some time in though, particularly if you have children. You can see there's hundreds of varieties of options here. And it's a big difference, just like with the bread aisle we talked about, where carbohydrates, there's a big difference in quality. Same thing with cereal. There's high sugar, low fiber, or no fiber cereals, and there's also much better options, like this product here, for example. Half a cup is one serving, and that gives you 7 grams of fiber. That's fantastic. And the same rule of thumb applies for cereals as it does for breads. We suggest that for every serving, every one serving, you aim for at least 3 grams or more of fiber per serving. Some products have much more than that, like this, which I mentioned has 7. Also look at the ingredient list. Are there any trans fats or hydrogenated oils on the food label? So make sure you read labels and make smart decisions for your children and yourselves.
And speaking of children, one of the things to keep in mind is that your children, the cereals that are placed at their eye level are also being marketed toward them. So those are going to be higher sugar, higher, usually more expensive cereals at children's height. And then the healthier options are going to be available on the top shelf of the cereal aisle. So one thing to keep in mind is that you just don't want to grab the first cereal that you see, and maybe even consider not taking your children down the cereal aisle if they're likely to be very insistent on the type of cereal they get to have.
And if you do want to compromise and maybe give them a treat, one option is to buy a sweeter sugar cereal with a less sweet sugar cereal and mix them together. So you're not giving the child, you're giving them some nutrients, but also pleasing their appetite as well.
And that concludes our grocery shopping tour for today. But remember, you are always being marketed to when you're in the grocery store. And so just as we're about to hit the checkout aisle, we have one last mad rush for candy bars and candy bar displays. So one way to think about this is if you see a red, yellow, or orange package, A, that's appetite stimulating, but B, that's something that's being marketed to you. So consider that a warning sign to stay away from that product. Now, we don't want you to stay away from red, yellow, and orange fruits and vegetables, but if it isn't a packaged product and it has some kind of sign or display associated with it, probably not the best choice.
A couple rules of thumb now that we talked about and just want to rehash. Number 1, never go to the grocery store hungry. You're apt to buy anything that's in your sight if that's the case. Number 2, make sure you make a list and stick to that list. Number 3, do 90% of your grocery shopping around the perimeter of the store. Every single store is set up virtually the same way. Produce, seafood, meat, dairy, and bread. Now, when you're doing that, and one thing we didn't mention earlier, you should always make sure you buy the products that need to be refrigerated towards the end of your shopping trip so they remain safe. So the seafood, the meats, and the dairies, buy them towards the end of the shopping so they have the less time without refrigeration. You could also sometimes ask the butcher or those at the seafood counter for ice. A lot of stores give you ice now to keep your products fresh.
When you're in the produce section, remember to shop for a variety of colors. So thinking about that rainbow of colors throughout the course of the day. And our challenge to you, which was to buy a new product and try something new. You can try a new piece of produce every single day, but at least every time you go grocery shopping, put a couple new things into your grocery cart in terms of produce and fresh fruits and vegetables. And then of course, always be careful of what you see on the end of the aisles. Try and avoid going down the aisles as much as possible because that's where you're likely to be tempted to and marketed to for high fat, high calorie items with little to no nutrient value that you really don't need.
Thank you very much. I'm Dr. Chris Moore.
And I'm Dr. Kara Gallagher, and we hope next time you're in the grocery store, you're shopping a little bit healthier.